Everyday Juggler, your source for juggling highlights, interviews, tutorials, and reviews. And now your host, Sean Livingston.
Hey everybody, and thanks for tuning in to Everyday Juggler Podcast. Today we get to hang out with Thom Wall. Tom's been juggling for 15 plus years. He went to circus school. He also has quite the academic record. He teaches. He also performs all around the world. Tom feels flattered already. Tom, you have you've competed and won some medals, I believe. So would you mind telling us some of your favorite competitions?
Yeah, sure. So I guess I've competed. The IJ used to hold a 3-ball juggling competition. They had this thing called the individual prop competition, which I think was super, super cool. I don't know they do it anymore, but it used to be the absolute minimum of anything that you can do, and see who's the best at that. So there was a 3-ball competition and a 1 Diablo competition, a 3-club and 3-ring, and so on and so on. In 2010 and 2011, I won the 3-ball division, which is super cool. They cap you at exactly at 2 minutes. They used to cap you at 2 minutes. So do an interesting 2 minutes of stuff. I think both of those routines are actually on YouTube if you search for me. And then in 2012, I competed in the seniors competition, the individuals competition, with my ball juggling number. That was exciting. I got a silver medal for that. And then in 2014, I competed again with a mouth stick act, which is a balancing discipline where I guess I used like a dagger and I held that in my teeth. I balanced objects on the sharp of the knife. I came away with a bronze, which I think is pretty good. I had 3 throws in the whole act, just 3 little throws.
Oh wow, yeah, that's pretty good.
Not bad for a juggling competition, right?
Yeah. So what is it that got you those awards? Is it your presentation then?
Yeah. I mean, when you look at the way the IJ competitions are scored, they've changed the rules a lot over the years. But it usually ends up being 50% technique and 50% artistic. Right now, I think it might be more like 60% artistic and 40% technique, somewhere in that area. And I think I've always done very well on the artistic or theatrical presentation side of things. My technique might be lacking somewhere. I learned before YouTube was around, so didn't really know what the possibilities were.
So, in watching some of your videos, it looks like you do a number of different things, and even hearing you talk just now, it sounds like kind of your juggling has evolved over time. You started with balls, and it's expanded a lot. Where did you start, and why did you start juggling? What got you started?
Well, my family moved around a lot when I was a kid. So my dad's he's a surgeon. He's since retired, but he would sort of go from hospital to hospital because he deals with sort of a specific type of childbirth injury. Blah blah blah. He's a great guy, wonderful guy, very talented guy. But we moved around a lot, so I learned to juggle 3 balls. I'm a foreign exchange student from Trinidad and Tobago at this weird private school in New Orleans. Back in New Orleans, I was 4th grade, 10 years old, something like that. Learned to juggle 3 rocks, at recess, and I figured that was it. Juggling, conquered, check mark, thumbs up. And then when my family moved to LA, I checked out The Complete Juggler by Finnigan from the library, and I realized, holy smokes, there's so much more to juggling. So I worked my way through that book. I definitely skipped the hat juggling and devil stick chapters. The rest of it.
Well, how old were you at that point?
We moved there when I was in 7th grade, and we left when I was a freshman in high school. And I moved to St. Louis when I was a sophomore in high school, so I was about 16. And that's when I discovered, I guess, the larger world of juggling. Up until then, it was cartoons of Dave Finnigan in a book. And there was this really wonderful juggling club in St. Louis that used to meet at this church, like 2 miles away from my parents' house, or I guess my house at that point too. And that was a club that was run by Richard Kennison. You heard Richard Kennison's name before? He won the IJ's Excellence in Education Award a couple of years ago. There were a bunch of really amazing jugglers that came through there. Richard was coaching Tony Pezzo at the time. Tony's from St. Louis. He was coaching Kellin Quinn, the 3-club juggler from St. Louis. I guess he does more than 3 clubs, but he's known for that. A guy named Cameron Ritter, who competed in IJ Juniors several years in a row. He's got solid, 5 foot back crosses all day. A bunch of really amazing technical jugglers. And that just blew my brain straight open, having a chance to see all of those. And so we met every Wednesday night, and I just kept going back. And that's really how I got started.
So this is all through high school in St.
Yeah,
Louis.
all through high school, yeah. And then
and so would you say that the club is kind of what kept you in it?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I mean, the community is why I started. I'd say the community is why why I'm still part of juggling today, why I still continue pursuing it. My sense of the community has gone, I think, from that small group in St. Louis, and then a couple of years after I moved to St. Louis, I went to my first IJA convention. I went to one in Davenport, Iowa. So my sphere moved down to these IJA people, and they started going to all these regional festivals, and then like YouTube and the whole online community, that you're doing all this stuff, all these wonderful YouTubers and folks like that started popping up. Ever since I've started performing more in like a circus context, circus and cabaret, the community of novelty acts and circus performers has really been a family to me too.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so after your time at the club in high school, what was next?
Yeah, so right after high school, I went to college. I went to Washington University in St. Louis, and funny thing happened. Like right when I was accepted, the presbytery that ran the church where the juggling club, I guess where they met, the presbytery decided they did not like to have jugglers in their sanctuary, so they kicked all the jugglers out. And when I went to WashU, there was a juggling club there. It was this tiny little club of 5 people. They were all graduating that year. And so I met them once, and they had, apparently, unbeknownst to me, had signed me up to be the president of the juggling club, even though I would be the only member.
Oh, okay.
So they were all gone away. And so we basically transferred the juggling club from this church down to the university, like 6 miles away. And we started meeting there instead, which was a wonderful thing because, after running a festival for a couple of years, we were able to start petitioning for funding from the student body, and then build more of a community there.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot easier to cultivate new jugglers when you have a giant box full of new clubs, and balls, and things that you can lend out to people. So
totally. So your club from high school was the same club you had through college.
Yeah, exactly. Just transferred it from one place to the other, and it's still going on now. The festival's still going on.
Okay.
It's so great to see. I think this year was the 10th year of that.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Good work on that.
Yeah. I mean, it's not really my work. It's all them now. So.
Yeah, you're a founding father.
Sure. I'll take it.
All right, so you're in college, and now you're professional. So what happened between college and now?
Yeah, so it all gets kind of muddy here. I went to school to study applied linguistics and comparative grammar, so sort of like modern languages. When I was in school, I studied Spanish, Arabic, German, Portuguese, and like ESL, and like pedagogical techniques for teaching English to second language learners. And a bunch of bureaucracy happened, and then I ended up with a degree in Germanic languages and literatures, which I really, honestly, did not have that much interest in. Call any of my professors now, they'll tell you I was one of the worst students of all time.
When I think about Germanic literature, like I don't know anything about it, but I imagine that it's got to be sort of like English literature, like kind of like old. Like... Yeah,
but more depressing, I'd say. Most, I don't know if there's anybody listening that knows anything about German late that'll probably, I don't know, I'll get some heat for this, but like, but I mean, it's like all these people wrote short stories and plays in the 1800s. By the time they turned 24, they all killed themselves. And then now you have these professors that are 90 years old that are world-renowned experts in this one 16-page long story that was written by a 22-year-old that offed himself. Like something about that.
Yeah, it's a little weird.
Yeah, it's super weird. But anyway, so I graduated with a degree. And I decided to move to Boulder, Colorado. The summer between, I got a job at this YMCA camp where they have like a small circus program. A woman named Bekah Smith, or I guess now Becca Hammond, she had worked there for a couple of years and had started this small juggling program there. And so I was there with a guy named Sam Malcolm. I don't know if you've heard of Sam Malcolm. He's a ring juggler, really, really well-known street performer now. And we basically raised these children and we taught them how to juggle. We lived together for about 3 months in Decorous, Colorado, middle of nowhere. And then I moved to Boulder, and I lived with a bunch of jugglers and burlesque performers and that kind of thing in a big house.
So at this point, were you were moving for like the sake of pursuing this career?
I was moving for the sake of getting away from St. Louis and sort of being more around things that I loved. You know, like I like being outdoors, and I like juggling, and I like variety performing. You know, I had some experience performing when I was in school. I had a relationship with the admissions office at WashU. So my senior year, I put on a lot of shows. It was me and members of the juggling club for prospective students. You know, as an example of diverse campus life. You know, like here's a club you could be involved in. Aren't they doing neat stuff? Come to WashU, and we'd be given 20 minutes of stage time to fill. And that was a really formative experience for sure. And yeah, so when I moved to Boulder, I picked up, you know, occasional gigs here and there. One of the ones that turned out to be more formative for me was with this circus sideshow called Hell's a Poppin' Sideshow Review, Greatest Show in Hell.
All right, say that one more time.
The Hell's a Poppin' Sideshow Review, Greatest Show in Hell, according to Rolling Stone.
All right.
There's like, you know, lots of like screwdrivers in the nose and like armless ladies, and, you know, sword swallowing and that kind of thing. And I was sort of the family friendly entertainment. I did a knife juggling act and a torch juggling act and, you know, a bunch of stuff like that. And I opened for them one time in Colorado Springs, and then a couple of months later they invited me to go tour with them. Yeah, and so I toured with them for a couple of months, and some things happened, and I ended up getting ditched in Vancouver, BC.
Wait, seriously? Just dropped off?
Yeah, they just sort of up and left. Which is, I mean, I understand why, and I understand the lifestyle. You know, like they had some stuff going on, and they had to pay for gas. And it turns out sideshow people aren't necessarily the best at accounting. They couldn't really afford to keep me on anymore. More of those stories might be suitable for not a podcast.
Okay. All right.
But that was a big learning experience. That was the first time that I'd had regular stage appearances. You know, like I'm sure it was like at bars and nightclubs and places. So that was really the first time that I had lots of stage time, night after night after night after night. So one of the big advantages to having a gig where, you know, you're putting up the same material again and again and again is that you can really start to look at small aspects of your performance and change it. You know, like the number of variables from show to show are reduced so greatly that you're able to focus on small aspects of your presentation. And that's something that appeals to me very, very much about, I guess, theater, performing, or whatever you want to classify juggling as.
So were you saying that's when you kind of realized this is something you wanted to do?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. It was something that I realized that I wanted to do, and that maybe if I put in work, I would have some kind of knack at. Yeah, and so following
that had never crossed your mind before?
I mean, maybe not to pursue professionally. It always appealed to me as something that I enjoyed as part of my life, you know. But that was the first time I'd really been able to put material up and sort of see a response from an actual lay public. You know, when I was performing at WashU doing the show at the admissions department, it's kind of a ringer audience, you know, like there's students that are interested in coming to the university, so of course they're going to be polite and kind to you. But if you're performing with a sideshow in a bar in Phoenix, you know, if they don't like it, they're going to throw a bottle at your head. You know? So that was big.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess what I'm thinking about as you're telling this is that I'm thinking about different people that will listen to this. You know, obviously, other professional jugglers might listen to this, and people that are just really into juggling, and maybe somebody who's not into juggling at all. But you'd been juggling for a long time, but it wasn't something you decided to do until you were in your 20s. So it's not necessarily something that you have to prepare for your whole life.
Yeah, I mean, having a depth of technical skill, like if you start at a young age, like that absolutely helps. Like when I was 18, when I was a freshman in college, I could kind of juggle 5 clubs, and I could juggle 7 balls pretty okay, and I had a bunch of different tricks. So I think that if I was starting at zero, from zero skill, and deciding at the age of 20 something that I wanted to pursue juggling for a living, that would be a much harder sell.
Yeah.
Not saying that's not possible. Like you see people like I think Matt Hall learned to juggle when he was like 24 years old or something. Like learned 3 balls at 24, and now he's invited to festivals all over the world. He's a full-time Japanese teacher. He's not relying on it for a living, but it's certainly a hobby that's been able to provide for him at a somewhat older age, I guess.
Yeah. All right. So you got dropped off in Vancouver. Is that what you said?
Yeah. I got left in Vancouver. Yeah, and I ended up finding my way back to where did I go? This feels like so long ago. I ended up back in Boulder for a little while. I picked up a gig with the Boulder Ballet Company. Peter Davison from Air Jazz. I don't know if you're familiar with Air Jazz. Huge. I mean, one of the biggest trio juggling acts of all time, I'd say. He's the artistic director for the Boulder Ballet Company. And so every year for the Nutcracker, they put on this really big circus-inspired thing. So I was part of a juggling trio with him and with Cindy Marvell as well. Cindy Marvell, she was part of Laser Vaudeville, the founding members of Laser Vaudeville. She won IJ Seniors sometime in the 90s. Really amazing, legendary juggler. Working with them was a big eye-opening experience. That was my first time in like a theater with like 800 something seats. Getting to juggle for people. I was a small role, but it's still interesting to see that side of production. Which was another inspiring thing. Yeah, and kind of bobbed around for a while. I have a CELTA. I don't know. You're a linguistics guy. Do you know anything about CELTA? It's a Cambridge University certificate for teaching English language to adults, or some one of those.
I'm not familiar with it.
Yeah, I was pretty sure that I was going to stop juggling at a point around there, just because the hustle is so hard. One of the things they don't tell you when you decide you want to pursue juggling as a career is that you're not just juggling. You when you make that jump, you're immediately a small business owner. And I don't think that those synapses had really.
That's really exactly what Erin Stephens said on the last podcast.
Yeah. I mean, it's crazy. I guess Erin is sort of from the same cohort as me. People that decided that they wanted to go from hobby to going professional. You got to experience that around the same time. But yeah, so I was going to quit forever. Maybe that's a little melodramatic, maybe, but. I was gonna quit. I had this backup plan to teach ESL to refugees in Philadelphia, basically. So I got a CELTA, which is it's accredited through Cambridge University. It's like a big fancy, whatever certificate. And then I applied for and was awarded a position with the Philadelphia Teaching Fellows. It's kind of like Teach for America. It's a little bit more selective than Teach for America. And I was going to be teaching the English language to refugees in inner city Philly. And then some budgeting stuff happened.
Some more budgeting stuff.
Yeah, more budgeting stuff. And I got this phone call basically saying that my position had been dissolved because they forgot to carry the one or something.
So apparently nonprofits aren't so good at the financing either.
Yeah. Yeah, so I was really lost what I was going to do, and it occurred to me that after I've been taking all these standardized tests to to practice exams and all these things to teach English in public schools, and when when I got this phone call, I was devastated on one level, but another level I was kind of relieved, and I realized that teaching would be some element of performance, but it wouldn't necessarily be the same kind of demonstration of skills and theatricality that I loved so much. So I talked to one of my friends who had graduated from WashU a couple of years after me, and he had just gotten accepted to NECA, New England Center for Circus Arts, to their professional training program. That's a big circus school that's here in beautiful Brattleboro. you can kind of see where the story is ending up, I guess. Yeah, so I made a couple of phone calls. Turns out that somebody just dropped out of the program, somebody that was accepted, and so I sent in an application super late in the game. And I lucked out. They accepted me, and then I think 4 weeks later, I moved here to Vermont.
How long ago was that?
I was part of the 2011-2012 class there. Yeah, and it's this. So at NECA, there are these two programs. There's the intensive program, which is basically how do they call it? They call it like getting a circus ready body. So like getting super fit and like learning a bunch of the basics of a bunch of different apparatuses. Like it's largely a trapeze school. It's mostly an aerial school here. So it's novel that they had jugglers my year. And then there's the professional training program, which is for people that already have some baseline of skill and fitness, and that are interested in creating acts. Basically.
Wait. So you're saying they just take people? They would take somebody who didn't have any experience with circus stuff and train them?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah. So I mean, it's a school. It's in the U.S. there's no degree granting university for circus. That's been tried in Portland, and for a bunch of reasons, I guess it failed. But it looks like they're starting one in Philadelphia very soon. It's called Circadium. It was run by Greg and Shana Kennedy. But right now, NECA is the only multi-year intensive training program. They've got this 2-year training track. And so I was accepted into the Pro Track program, and there I wrote a ball juggling number, and I wrote probably the world's worst hoop diving number that anyone has ever seen. I'm not a tumbler, I did my first cartwheel when I was 24 years old. But so hoop diving is a discipline where you have just these static hoops that are standing on the ground and you dive through them.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I went to NECA. And then that summer, just on a whim, I applied to the IJ seniors. I had a video from one of the graduation shows, and I figured it was good enough to send in with my $25 to see if the IJ would take it. And they invited me to come perform, which was surprising. And yeah, I guess right after I finished NECA, I got a job at Busch Gardens, Williamsburg. Doing a big production show there. It was this 20-minute show. It was me and a cast of like 12 other people, like a lot of Broadway-style singers and dancers, and a couple of acrobats. And we did something like 500 shows that summer. It was like an absolute circus death march.
Oh my goodness.
It was 5 shows a day, 6 days a week. The shows were always on every single day, but we had a cast of, there were 5 circus people and there were 4 circus tracks, so you got to swap one person out every week. And I told a buddy, I don't know what I did. I like bought him a 6-pack or something,
Yeah.
And I was able to take 2 days off, so I drove from Williamsburg, Virginia, down to Winston-Salem, South Carolina. After doing 50 shows, did the IJ stage competition. Got back in my car, drove back up, and did 50 more shows.
Oh, goodness.
It was not a nice time. So if you didn't see me in 2012, you just saw me on stage. Sorry, yeah.
I guess that's how it starts, though. You got to put in the hard work. Yeah,
absolutely. And I mean, you really can't, especially at the start of a career, you can't really turn down a lot of work. There are definitely more jugglers out there than there are gigs. And so if you get a reputation, or get somebody that says no, then you're going to continue having that reputation, which is no good. And then I guess after the theme park contracts, I was cleaning the apartment that I was subletting, and I was worried that I had no work coming up. I got a phone call from Neil Goldberg's Cirque Dreams. I don't know if you're familiar with Cirque Dreams. It's kind of they're sort of imitating Cirque du Soleil style, like the Cirque Nouveau style. They do performing arts center tours all over the U.S. And they were putting together a little contract for South Korea, and I got picked up on that tour. I basically juggled during some transitions, and did a little act there, but it was my first experience performing internationally, I guess, besides like the Turbo Festival in Quebec. So, yeah, so I did a contract with them in South Korea. I did a long, like I think it was about a month with them at the Mystic Lake Casino just south of the Mall of America in Minnesota. I did some work with them in Cancun too, and in Florida. I haven't worked with them for a while, but that was a really big eye-opening experience for me too.
So here's a question: as you're, how are you picking up these gigs? People are calling you out of the blue, or they're seeing you somewhere, or you're searching them out?
It's a combination of all of those, and I wish that I could say that it ever changed over the course of my career. I haven't really been doing this for too long. But yeah, it's definitely a combination. It's I have a graduate degree in arts administration, so a lot of those tools have kind of helped. But I mean, a lot of it's PR. Just constantly emailing people and letting them know, like, hey, I'm still alive. I'm working. Here's a video of my new act. Here's a thing that I'm doing. Facebook has changed a lot of things. A lot of social media has changed things. So now there are a lot of small-time producers that might put a bug out saying, hey, we're looking for a serial act and a juggler. Like, if you know anybody like that, send me their demo materials. So yeah, so it's a big combination of searching people out, getting phone calls out of the blue, maintaining an online presence. I've heard of presenters turning down potential entertainers because they have too small of a Facebook following.
Interesting.
You must not be important because you must not be very good because you don't do that. That has no reflection on how good of a juggler you are, how entertaining you are, how much time you spend on Twitter or Facebook. Crazy thing, but that's the world we live in. So, yeah.
So would you say that now it's getting easier to get gigs?
I think it's easier and harder. Like it makes it easier for the initial connection to happen, but there's also so much static out there too that you have to somehow be able to rise beyond people. So I mean, it's nice to have like a good demo video. It's good to have a nice press kit, that kind of thing. If people Google your name, it's good to be able to find positive reviews about a show. There's so much information out there. It's a matter of being able to present that information nicely and have it show up nicely on Google. So, and then a lot of it too, the circus world is so small. There are so few, like talking about like high level gigs, not just, doing, not saying that Ren fairs aren't high level, there are I've got a lot of friends that do that full time and make a very good living. But like getting work for Soleil or something, a lot of that is making sure that the right person is putting your name in front of the right person so that they pick you to be the juggler that they train to pick up on the track. So, yeah.
So it sounds like you're at this point, once you kind of enter into the juggling career, you really bounce around between all sorts of companies.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. You're definitely, freelance for sure. That's not to say that there aren't people that have, beautiful, long-standing relationships with a lot of different companies. I know people. I just did a contract with Celebrity Cruises. I was, I guess, like the featured juggler in a production show that they were doing. I did my ball juggling number, my mount stick number on a ship, and there were some people on the ship that had been working with Celebrity for over 10 years.
Oh wow!
As a specialty act, So there's definitely a lot of loyalty that happens. So there are a lot of jugglers out there. There are a lot of hand balancers out there. But if you cultivate a reputation with a particular company as being reliable and produce a good product, then they're going to want to keep you around.
Do you feel like it's hard to set down roots and build relationships by switching around so often?
Not really.
Okay.
At least in my experience of it, I only know my side of it. I definitely have a lot of repeat people. I guess my career is a little funny too, because on one hand, I do present these, like 5 to 10 minute long, more like cabaret acts, but I also have a full hour long show that I produce, that I present, that I selling, how you want to call it. They're a bunch of nonprofits up in New England that I work with pretty frequently. They like a whole show as well. So I mean, a lot of this is being nice, being personable, and being willing to communicate with people that are hiring. So.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so here's a question I was wondering about. And this is a question I ask everybody. Who was as you were kind of pursuing, not the juggling career, but just juggling in general. So from the youngest age, who did you look up to? What juggler was kind of your role model?
When I first started getting really interested in like combining juggling with movement, I would say that Stefan Sing was my biggest inspiration.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know. Are you very familiar with Stefan?
Mm-hmm.
Stefan's work? Should look him up. He has a duet with his wife Cristiana, named it's called Tangram. It's just like cut your heart out. The most beautiful thing you'll ever see in your entire life. It's incredible. Stefan is this really amazing ball juggler, and really beautiful movement. And his wife is a ballerina and modern dancer, and they have this beautiful 2-person movement-based piece.
I will have to look it up.
Yeah, in terms of like it's like hardcore juggling. I learned before YouTube was really a thing, so people used to use. I don't remember the name of the website, but it was this one website where you could upload like an MPEG of your video and have people download the MPEG of the video. It's like an FTP server basically, and all of Tomas Deitz's videos were on there. And so those videos, I mean, I didn't know what a side swap was, but like you see the beautiful, like, what's the thing called? All the balls go up and they fall at the same time, like 9-1 and all those tower patterns that he was so known for, I guess. So that was big. I remember watching a lot of videos of Michael Karras when I was younger. I'm really lucky to say that Michael's a super good friend of mine now. We spent a lot of time together when I was in New York this past spring.
That sounds like that's a common story I'm hearing with jugglers. I'm asking this question, who'd you look up to? And then like it usually ends with, now we're friends.
Right, yeah, for sure.
Which I think is pretty cool.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of the work that I'm doing now is more like gentleman juggling, parlor style juggling. So unfortunately, most of my inspirations aren't alive anymore. One of the jugglers that I really love, I guess there's two that I will talk about. There's Felix Adanos, who's a juggler. I think he was like active in the 20s or 30s.
Okay.
A lot of things with billiard cues, champagne buckets, and that kind of thing. Really classic stuff. To my knowledge, he's the first guy that did. You're familiar? There's a trick that Jeton does now. Jeton's this. He's Austrian. He's either Austrian or German. But you have a billiard cue that you balance on your face, and another billiard cue that's horizontal across it with a cue ball that's counterbalancing it. And you shake your head, and the pool ball falls, and the top pool cue slides down, and you catch it in the balance as it's falling. So that was the trick that he was really well known for. Big inspiration. And then there's a guy named Uno Lima. I think he was Filipino, but he did a lot of glass balancing and mouth stick. And he had this like really animated presence that did not stop. The rock and roll presence. He was one of the first guys to do the trick that Freddie Cannon does. This trick that just went super viral on YouTube recently. So where you have a violin bow in your teeth and you balance a bunch of glasses and you play the habanagila on a violin. Needs to balance. So he's an inspiration for sure. We're talking about living people, like living jugglers that I really look up to and I respect. And, David Cain, the guy that does all the historical articles for the IJ, he runs the Historical Prop Museum.
He was my second interview.
Oh, cool. Yeah. He's such a good friend. And I'm lucky that he lives, Middleton, Ohio is like right halfway in between St. Louis, where my parents live, and Brattleboro, where I live. So I can just his place every time I make that drive.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, it's great. And then there's also Friz Grobe. You familiar with Fritz? He won IJ Seniors in the late 80s or the early 90s with a Diablo number. but he's a really wonderful director. He does a lot of stuff at the Celebration Barn Theater in South Paris, Maine. Yeah.
So you've had a lot of influences.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, a lot of great friends. What can you say?
One thing that I really appreciate about your juggling and what I've seen that you do is it's really focused on the entertainment factor, and I think that kind of speaks to who you are a little bit, and I would guess that you're the kind of person that really is looking to make people happy and to do things that people are going to appreciate.
I'll take that. Yeah.
What do you think drives that kind of desire to not necessarily do the hardest trick ever? Not that your tricks aren't hard,
Sure.
but just trying to engage the audience.
Yeah, I mean, I think once you've been to like your 50th or your 60th juggling festival, a lot of times you can sort of predict exactly what the juggler is going to do on stage. I don't know if this jives with your experience or not. Talking about Fritz. Fritz talks a lot about calls them bedroom acts or bedroom routines. So you see the juggler who's rocking out on stage doing his thing, and as you watch his movement on the stage, you can literally say, okay, well, when he was rehearsing this in his bedroom, his bed was there and his table was there because those are the spots where he doesn't move, and he's a little low over here because there's the ceiling fan. But I think on some level too, a lot of jugglers have what I like to call, and I am afflicted of the same thing, what I call juggler brain too, which is where you're more excited about the difficulty of a trick or the fact, I was doing this 3-ball thing, but he's catching that in the penguin, this one's going behind his back, and he's jumping a little higher than normal. Isn't that amazing? Whereas like the lay audience wouldn't necessarily care.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the more that you perform for a lay audience, the more you realize how much of the juggler's nuanced sensibility of what's going on. I mean, it doesn't even exist for lay audience. If you were to show, I don't know, like a WJF finals routine or whatever to the usual person, when that person walks out of the stage or out of the arena or whatever, they'll just say, "Oh, well, he was good at juggling, I guess." Like, what else?
Yeah.
That's no offense, and that's that their goal isn't theatricality, but that's. I mean, when you walk off stage, don't you want somebody to say more than he was good at juggling, I guess?
Right.
No?
I think you can say the same thing about like sports you're not familiar with.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, exactly.
So I watch golf and
sure.
I don't understand golf. I don't know how golf works. I've tried hitting a ball and I can't do it, and that's so it's cool that they can do that, I guess.
Right. Yeah. Sure. For sure. Yeah. What was I gonna say? Yeah, there was I had this moment at this walk around gig for this a scrap metal recycling firm that was based in St. Louis. Their annual Midwest conference was happening in St. Louis, and they decided to hire a bunch of entertainment. And so I was hired to sort of be like ambient entertainment, walk around this big convention floor and I don't know, make people happy, and enhance the production value, make people feel better about themselves, something. And so I had to do 3 of these half-hour-long sets, basically, where I would go and I'd mingle and I get to take a break. And the very first one, I went out and I had my 3 balls, and I was going to do the most incredible 3-ball juggling that anybody had ever seen, because I was going to do the penguin and the under the leg and all this stuff, right? And I did half an hour. I would be amazed if anybody even looked at me. And this is coming on the heels, if we want to talk about accolades or credentials or whatever, I had all this these IGA awards and all this other stuff going on. I was doing pretty much the same stuff. Why didn't these businessmen care? And it's like, okay, so I finished that first set. And I was like, man, that was rough. I don't know what's going on. And so my next set, I walked out and I had a bottle, just like a glass bottle, because I'd just been starting to play with some mount stick stuff. And I decided I was going to balance the bottle on my head. I was just going to walk. I was just going to make laps for half an hour and sort of see what happens next. You're ambient entertainment. You're given a lot of leeway in what you do. And yeah, I noticed people started like looking at me kind of funny. It's like the whisper. It's like I didn't get any whispers when I was juggling 3 balls. How is this any different? And then for my third set, I found 3 of these like melamine plates, like plastic plates that kind of look like china. And I mean, you're familiar with the basic 3-plate juggle where you have like plate in your hand, a plate on the elbow, and one here, and you slide them, so it always looks like you're about to drop a plate. And I did that for half an hour, and people stopped. They pulled me aside. They had me do little tricks for their groups of people. And sure, maybe it was probably because these people had been drinking all night. I don't know.
Yeah, it was the third one.
but I mean, there's this huge takeaway point for me. It's like the 3-plate slide. Like you could learn how to do that in like half an hour in your backyard. Like get the very very basics. But you compare that to the ball juggling that I've been doing. That it's like much higher higher skilled or more highly nuanced or whatever. Yeah, so that really opened up a lot of new thought processes for me. And I think that's when I really started pursuing more of this gentleman juggler style stuff with more like everyday objects. Like a plate, everybody has dropped a plate and smashed a plate before. Everyone knows how much it weighs, what it's made out of, and the thickness and all that stuff. Whereas with the juggling ball, you walk off stage and somebody might ask you like, what is that? Oh, I thought it weighed like 3 pounds. I thought it weighed nothing. I don't know. So it makes it a little less alien.
It makes it a lot more real, yeah.
Yeah. So a lot of the work that I do now, I get a lot of work with a glass balancing act where I balance, these wine glasses on the sharp of the knife in my teeth. In like my full theater show, I do more stuff with like a pogo stick and bowling balls and that kind of thing. I jump over cell phones that are laid on the ground with a pogo stick. It's a big thing. So rat traps. I do stuff with. I have a newer act that I just wrote at the Celebration Barn with Fritz.
With what?
With Fritz, the guy I've been talking about, Friz Grobe.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Yeah. I wrote a tea set juggling act with him, so it's about 10 to 15 minutes of me trying to make a cup of tea. But it's all. So it has like a real strong, like logical backbone. That's something that I really value in juggling acts. Is nice logic to it. And yeah, just different tricks.
So would you say, here's another question for you. I guess you haven't juggled in too many other countries performing, but have you noticed a difference in what people like to see depending on where you are? I guess that's even true in the States. Could be true.
I don't know. I think it all depends on context. There's theater in any country you go to. There are definitely places that don't view what I do as circus. This past January, I was in Latvia at a big international circus festival in Riga, and they do a lot of like they've got trained bears at that circus. It's like really really old Soviet influenced circus. And I billed myself as a juggler there. And I was competing with the glass balancing act, which is a juggling discipline under their eyes, but a lot of people asked me, like why I wasn't entered as a clown, because what I was doing, they saw more of the clown than they saw the juggler.
Too silly to be a juggler.
Yeah, I don't know, I guess. Yeah, or too much of something else to be a juggler, I mean, I took it as a compliment, like I've seen a lot of boring juggling acts. Maybe I don't want to be a juggler. I don't know. not as they define it, at least,
Yeah. So. I mean, watching, I think it was a solo act. I think on your YouTube channel you have a solo act you did at IJA. I think like an opening act maybe of.
Oh, me and Ben. Ben. Yeah. We have a little theater show that we do.
And I was entertained.
Cool. There you go. Yeah, Ben's a really dear friend. He's also, I would definitely categorize him as an influence. Yeah, he's a juggler, but he's also like a corporal mime, so like a really beautiful mover and a lot of sleight of hand magic as well. He directs a lot of shows and presents a lot of things. He just got back from a tour in India with a big clown festival. Yeah, he's a really good guy. I have another duo show. So dinner and a show, that's the thing with Benjamin.
Right.
It's more of like a theater project. It's more of like a narrative arc that happens to have lots of juggling in it. And then my friend Curtis Carlyle, we have a sort of a vaudeville wink and nudge show called The Hopeless Romantics. And that's more about like verbal comedy than it is about having like a real plot. That also happens to have juggling, but the juggling is really just I guess a structure to get away with a lot of jokes.
But more recently, you've also done Cirque du Soleil and the Rockettes in New York City.
Yeah.
What were those experiences like?
Oh man, I mean, how much time do we have?
That's a huge question, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really big question. I mean, Soleil was definitely a dream come true. I got very, very lucky to be invited to do that. I was filling in for another juggler who was off. He was in the hospital for back surgery.
Oh no.
Yeah. But I was doing Greg Kennedy's cone juggling act. I don't know if you're familiar with that. It's this big plexiglass cone that you stand inside of, and you roll these LED balls along the interior surface of the cone, so they're whipping around you, kind of like electrons in an atom.
What year did you do that in?
2014, so last year.
Okay.
Yeah, I was gone pretty much all last year.
Rachel, my wife and I, we went to see that performance.
Oh, you did?
But I don't know if it was in 2013 or 2014. Yeah. And
it like it would have either been in Vancouver or in Auckland, New Zealand. So I wasn't part of the U.S. tour. Really.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So
I did some training when the show was in Portland, but
so it must have been 2013. Yeah. But I remember seeing that act that you're talking about and being enamored by it.
Yeah, it's a really beautiful act. One of the weird things with the big, I guess, like corporate show, like, I mean, Soleil is a big corporation, have their own artistic team and their own artistic standards that you have to meet. And the choreography is the choreography. You can't really change it. So I learned that act from zero to being show ready in about 2 months. And it's a very long 2 months. But I learned it throw for throw. There was no room for my own interpretation of anything. So the act that I was doing was literally cut and paste exactly what Greg was doing. He was doing it slightly. I was doing, I guess, his version of the act when they first wrote the show. After you do it for how many shows, like 1,500 or 2,000 shows, like you start to change it. But he owns the act, so he has the liberty to do that.
Right.
Yeah. It was a really wonderful experience. It was definitely one of the more stressful things I've done in my life. Really, really stressful, but really definitely learned a lot about how to train to be show ready, how to work on a new discipline.
Would you do it again?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So when and if that happens, when I actually get the phone call, I'd probably do it for a year or two, maybe 2 years would be the limit. Because it is a super high level performance. Like you have to be on every single night. And you're also you're sort of reliving the same day every single day. So every show is the same. You have a 2-show day. Those 2 shows are exactly the same. You're wiped out by the end of it. You have to warm up and work out everything every morning. So it's really the exact same day every single day for as long as you're on contract, as long as you're on tour. So.
Right.
Yeah.
Very regimented.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that was the same thing with Radio City for sure too. I was doing the New York Spring Spectacular. It was their new spring show. I think I heard a rumor that they're moving that to the summer next year. I don't know what the deal is. I was part of the ensemble, but they decided at the last minute to inject some new circus. It's more panache. So they hired me, they hired some tumblers, they hired a hand-to-hand duo to do some stuff. And so whenever there was a scene where they could incorporate juggling, they incorporated me. So so I juggled bagels in one of the scenes, I juggled torches in another one of the scenes. I mean, it was an amazing experience. It was really wonderful. And it's crazy. I mean, Radio City is huge. It's the largest indoor theater in the world. It's something like 6,000 seats or 6,200 seats. It's crazy. So it was just remarkable to be in that space and get to know it kind of intimately.
And to be able to perform in such a large numbers of people, like every day, right?
Yeah. Sometimes 3 times a day.
Yeah.
That's a pretty crazy schedule too.
Yeah. I really wanted to hear if a couple of tips on balancing stuff, because it looks like that's something you really like to do, and I think it's because it's sort of something we can all understand, whether you juggle or not, it's hard to balance things.
Sure, yeah.
So, I guess maybe 2 or 3 tips on getting started if you're interested in
Sure.
balancing while you juggle.
Yeah. So one of the best drills I think there is for it, and here in Vermont, when I'm in Brattleboro, I'm teaching, coaching at NECA, New England Center for Circus Arts. One of the drills that I make all of my juggling students do is you go out to the hardware store and you buy a dowel, so a hardwood dowel, like 1/2-inch diameter. I thought I had one. We're in my little workshop room here. I thought I had one here, but yeah, so thick enough that you can't bend it, so it won't warp on its own.
Mm-hmm.
And your goal is to balance that on either your forehead, your nose, or your chin for 2 minutes straight without moving your feet.
Mm.
And the way you balance it is you put it on your preferred spot, stare straight up at the top, because it's the top is where you get all the information. It'll feel impossible for the first week that you do it, and you'll start to see these glimmers of your body starting to understand it. If you're really putting in thoughtful, dedicated practice. And then eventually you get to the 2 minutes without moving your feet. Then you cut 2 inches off of the top. Still get a hacksaw and cut 2 inches off, and you do it again. You'll be amazed at how much harder it is, and how much you suck because you can't do it. And you were able to do it, and it was just 2 inches longer. And eventually you'll cut off all these 2-inch notches until you're down to a little bit smaller than the length of a club, so like 22 inches or something. Then ta-da, you can balance. You have balance in your body.
Mm-hmm.
That's a wonderful thing. I think learning to balance is one of the most fundamentally game-changing things for any juggler. Like, it teaches you like the weight on either side of your body. It teaches you about activating your core. It teaches you, this new sensibility about how you interact with the world that you didn't have before.
Mm-hmm.
And so even if you're not interested in pursuing balance tricks, I think it's really, really important for people to learn
mm-hmm.
how to do that.
That's amazing advice. Thanks for that.
Sure, yeah.
All right, so
send me a video of you doing
it. Yeah, there you go. If you learn to do this, send Thom a video.
ThomWall.com. There you go.
Some closing, some quick fire questions.
Sure.
To end it off, what's your favorite trick or pattern to do?
Favorite trick or pattern to do? I'm working on a lot of head bounce stuff right now. A lot of like skipping rope underneath the head bounce, and also learning to bounce a ball and get the ball itself to skip rope. And I'd say right now that is my favorite trick to do, because it is finally starting to click.
Awesome.
Yeah.
How about to watch?
To watch? Really like bounce jugglers, watching bounce jugglers. We talked a little bit about Dave Nair before we recorded this. It's such a mystery to me. Just like people that can run 5-ball force bounce for like all day, like that's magic to me. I love that.
Favorite festival you've been to?
Festival, Kansas City 2013.
And why?
Because it was great. Yeah, it was the right people. Like the Blizzard Concept Company was there. They're a French duo. Sort of do kind of juggling, kind of clown, kind of novelty act stuff. Look them up. They've got a video from a French TV show. It's awesome. They're Blizzard Concept Company. Yeah.
Okay. Favorite prop?
Favorite prop? I like mouth stick because I get most of my work right now through mouth stick. I like head bounce because that's the thing that's starting to open up. I'm actually doing a lot of trapeze right now, duo trapeze with my girlfriend. So
that's fun.
Yeah. So that's a favorite thing that I'm working on.
Don't break your back.
Try not to. Yeah.
Favorite brand of props?
That's hard to say. I mean, a lot of the stuff that I'm doing right now, there is no real manufacturer for the props. And so when you find the teacups that I'm using, I found at a Japanese dollar store in Auckland, New Zealand. And I bought every single one of them that they had there. It was the most perfectly weighted thing I've ever seen in my life.
You bought another suitcase just to take home your tea set.
No, I mean, really, that's the reality of it, though. like plates, like you would never think about it. Like the average consumer doesn't care how thick they are, how brittle they are, what the edge feels like in your hand. But like you'll find this one brand, and then you'll try and go back the next season to buy more, and they're all gone, or they've all changed, or they changed like the density of the plastic or the ceramic or whatever it is that you're using. So, so there's no real answer. I'm sorry. I use Henry's gloves right now.
Okay.
It's Delphins. So.
Just start naming off a bunch of different brands. That'll be good. I also, there's one more question. It's a little bit longer, but I have to ask it. How have you seen juggling affect other people's lives positively?
I've got a bunch of different answers for that. Generally, I see it as a positive influence on just about everybody's life. That has gotten like deeply involved with sport, art, discipline, whatever you want to call it. So one of the things I do for the IJ, International Jugglers Association, is I've helped officiate some of their regional competitions. So there's sort of like the main event that happens in the U.S. or Canada, but there are also these satellite events that happen all over the world. And recently, I went to the Periplo Festival in Guadalajara in Mexico to be sort of the IJ's presenting guy, like the officiant there, the guy that represented the IJ. And I met so many people there. Like juggling is kind of like skateboarding in the U.S. Like it is huge. Everybody does it. Everybody has their own like unique style. They're all like they're just going absolutely crazy. Like the juggling scene in Mexico is insane. And there are a lot of people there that have started out as hobby jugglers. That the IJA started this event, and they realized that the world of juggling is so much bigger, and that if they want to write an act, they should include these different things to score more points. Maybe they could win a medal. Maybe they could win this prize money. And I guess speaking specifically about the winner of the very first IJA event that was held in Mexico, it was at the Barullo Festival, which organizationally is the same entity as Periplo. But Fer Sumano is this hula hooper whose career just like exploded because of the IJA event in Mexico. And seeing her go from someone that was just sort of interested in hula hooping and interested in passing and in performance, and meeting her this past summer, and seeing how that has affected her life in just this fundamentally shifting way. Like, I mean, it has taken her from like 0 to 100. Like it's incredible, absolutely incredible. She's one of the greatest performers you'll see. Like she's just electric on stage.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's kind of cool too to hear how juggling is something that can transform kind of the economy of people's lives in developing countries.
Yeah, absolutely.
I hadn't really thought about that. That's neat.
Yeah.
That sounds like a nonprofit in the making.
Yeah, I mean, the IJA,
somebody has a degree in.
IJA is a nonprofit. A lot of people give it flack for give the IJA flack for not being international enough, but when you see the amount of outreach that we're doing in, I'm saying we I'm not. I don't really. I do the tutorial contest for the IJA now, but that's about it. That's the international stuff. But you see the impact that these events are having in the circus communities where they're being held. It's crazy. It is. I did not believe. I knew that it was big before I went there, but I did not realize how big and how big of an impact these projects have had.
Mm-hmm. That's amazing. All right, so if people want to find you to hire you or just watch your stuff, where can they find you?
My website is thomwall.com, thomwall.com. I think on Facebook I've got a fan page called Thom Wall, the Vaudeville Sensation. And I put a lot of videos and upcoming dates and that kind of thing there. I actually have a secret page on my website that if anybody's interested in my workshop stuff, it's thomwall.com/workshops. And I have links to all the handouts I give and all of my workshops that I give at festivals all over the place.
Oh, that's a sweet resource.
Yeah. I mean, they're not videos, you can't really see it, but they've got these little drawings.
All right, so thomwall.com/workshops and learn to be a better juggler with Thom Wall.
I don't know about better. I will other you.
More diverse?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. I've got some stuff on like 3 and 4 ball drills, stuff about blind throws behind the neck that used to be something I was I still perform it, but I don't really explore it as much as like Mike does, Mike Moore. Yeah, and I also have a blog on my website, thomwall.com/blog, and I talk a lot about act creation and making things interesting. Also about just experiences. So I talk about my time at the Free-Flow Festival. I talk about the Cirque Festival in Riga with the Rockettes, training for Cirque du Soleil. That's fun.
So more detail about a lot of things we talked about.
Yeah, exactly.
And you're on YouTube?
Yeah. I think my YouTube channel is Thom Wustl, ThomWustl.
I think if we just search your name, it comes up.
Yeah. If you just search me.
Yep. Cool. And the last word goes to you. What are some closing advice for the juggling community at large?
You should read this book called Impro for Storytellers by Keith Johnstone. You should read this book called Mind Spoken Here by Tony Montanaro, with his widow, Erin Montanaro. Tony was the guy that founded the Celebration Barn. Really amazing. Read this book. Clever Turns. Talks about, like, if you're interested in like weird novelty acts, like this has got like a history of people that used to jump out of wash basins and stuff. Like it's super, super cool.
They just keep coming.
Yeah, they just keep coming. It's really just a bunch of photos, but you know, like if you're interested in like historical juggling stuff, there's a collection of Paul Bachman. Paul died this year. He's a really, really wonderful guy.
That book is available on Amazon, just in case anybody's wondering.
Juggler's Glorious?
Yeah, you used to have to get it through Paul's website or the e-zine or something, but now it's on Amazon.
Cool. Yeah. And then the last resource, this one's a little harder to find. It's called Juggling the Art and Its Artists by Carlyle. It's another picture book about historical jugglers, but you know, it's kind of amazing the amount of stuff that people like jugglers today think are new. But like if you go to the library, you'll realize how much of the stuff is old. Like the Allegria brothers used to do all of the club on club balancing that people sort of see to be in vogue and new today. Like that was what, like 1930. So yeah, there's a lot of amazing stuff on juggling.tv. If you're familiar with juggling. A lot of really old historic stuff that's hard to find in places.
So what I'm hearing from you, a big thing is we need to look to the past to kind of
be
better.
Yeah, you know, what do they say? Like an hour in the library is worth 10 in the lab. There you go.
All right. Hey, well, thanks a lot for being on. Great conversation.
Yeah, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
And I hope everybody enjoyed our time with Thom Wall. Make sure you say thank you somewhere. I didn't say anything about Twitter, but maybe he's on Twitter. You on Twitter?
I think I have a feed.
All right, don't say thank you on Twitter. That'll be a waste of time. Go find his fan page. Tell him thank you. And until next time, keep on juggling.
Thanks for watching. If you like what you saw, be sure to support the channel. Leave a comment, like, share, and subscribe.